Hello, everybody. You're listening to the Earful Tower podcast. My name's Oliver G, and today we're talking about the Latin Quarter of Paris. It's been like 5 years since I did an episode about the Latin Quarter. I sense not much has changed, given it's thousands of years old. But at the same time, I sense that it's a topic that we should revisit. And I thought, who better to revisit the topic with me than Hannah Coyle, who is leading our brand new Latin Quarter walking tours, which we'll talk about in a second. But I'm going to introduce her right now. She's sitting across from me. Hannah Coyle, welcome to the Earful Tower podcast.
What a pleasure to be here, Oliver.
Is that an accent?
It is an accent.
Can we just get this out of the way? I want to say I think Irish accents are my favorite.
Really?
Yeah, I do think so.
Okay. I hear it a lot, but I think when people think of Irish accents, they're thinking of like Colin Farrell.
No.
Saoirse Ronan.
No.
I don't automatically think of my own.
I think of the Cranberries.
Okay, yeah.
And I think of, what was that film we talked about the other day?
The Crying Game.
I think of The Crying Game.
Yeah, you're spot on geographically.
Is that where you're from?
That's where I am
from. So that's
from.
the same Irish as maybe that's why I connect you to The Crying
Must
Game
be.
and The Cranberry. What about Hosier? He's from?
He's from Dublin. So
And you're from?
Just outside Belfast, it's a little town called Hollywood.
Okay.
Which is home of, also birthplace of Jamie Dornan, actual Hollywood movie star, and Rory McIlroy, the golfer.
I wonder how quickly we're losing the audience. Bring them back.
It's this teeny tiny little town, and it's called Hollywood.
There might be people listening right now thinking, I feel like I recognize Hannah and her voice. Now, you've met a lot of Earful Tower listeners.
Yeah, at this stage, I've been doing tours a while.
Well, we just started chatting about it. Firstly, I can't believe I've not had you on the podcast. It's just one of those things. I'm glad to have you here now.
I'm glad to be here.
And you said you've been doing it for over a year in Montmartre and the Marais. Mm-hmm. How did that happen?
Well, I remember I think we had a conversation maybe 2 years ago about me doing tours, and then one thing and another, it didn't work out. And then last year, I started doing the first tour that I shadowed of yours was the day after the anniversary of Dalida. So anybody who has done the Montmartre tour with me or with you will know who that is. And I remember it so clearly because her gravestone was covered in fresh flowers. And then maybe the next day or 2 days later, I was there and I thought, oh, we were here. Wow. We were here the day after her
Fantastic
anniversary.
Gravestone.
Yeah.
Probably the best.
I would say so.
In the country.
Undoubtedly.
Yeah.
I mean, I would, and it's not just because he's Irish. I'm not just biased because he's Irish, but I would argue that a close second is Oscar Wilde and Père Lachaise.
I'm racking my brains to think of the famous Australian graves to add to the conversation. Got nothing. But let's leave the Père Lachaise and Montmartre. We're in the wrong part of town.
Absolutely.
And let's head to the Latin Quarter and talk about this a little bit because I've got to credit you with pushing me to do this because I think you've been saying to me for 2 years, do the Latin Quarter.
Yeah.
And I've always been like, Latin Quarter, there's something, and I'm quite sure people listening at home will feel this as well, that it's a bit of a maze.
Yeah.
And I feel like with Montmartre, you can go visit Montmartre.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Or the Marais. You're like, I'm in the Marais.
Yeah.
But it doesn't feel like that to me with the Latin Quarter. It doesn't feel like a district. I don't know. Do you know what I mean?
I feel like the Latin Quarter is both a geographical location as well as like a concept.
Maybe that's what it is. The concept is freaking me out.
Yeah, I think it's just that it's this whole idea. There's so much history there. There's a history that has spanned like hundreds of years, and also sort of relatively or recently speaking, I think a lot of people feel a little bit overwhelmed by it.
Time travel, that's why.
Yeah.
Time travel and the what did you say? It's a concept.
It's a
not
concept.
Not just a district.
Yeah.
Wow, I like this. But also, you've got 1900-year-old things left and right, and modern coffee shops.
Modern coffee shops. You have bookshops that sell secondhand bookshops, and then you have, this cabinet of curiosities that sells your new books.
You don't need to do these shout-outs, Hannah, but I appreciate You're talking about Messie's cabinet.
Absolutely.
Of curiosities, yes.
I think it's this, it's a beautiful harmony of the old and the new in the Latin Quarter. In some places you can feel there's a real friction between the modern and the ancient, but in the Latin Quarter, maybe it's just over the course of time, or it's the people who live there. or its presence in literature. I'm not sure, but maybe it's a sort of an intersection of all of those things. But it feels the two really coexist very beautifully.
I think James Joyce lived up there as well.
He did, yeah.
Worth mentioning.
Absolutely, James Joyce. All you have to do is read A Movable Feast by Ernest Hemingway, and you really do feel like you are there. He depicted it in such a vibrant way, and I think you can really engage with the ancient in the Latin Quarter in a much more real way than you can in other parts of Paris.
Interesting. But so he wrote that like 100 years ago, right?
1924, yeah, probably more or less. He lived here. It was 100 years ago. It was between 1924.
But I remember reading his. I think I was reading that book and being like, chickens out in the street and dogs running around. That doesn't feel like that anymore.
No, it has become very.
We don't see a single chicken or.
Well, you can see them. You'll see them roasting in the butchers.
Yeah.
But no, it's a very sophisticated neighborhood now.
I agree, and what I think would be fun is to talk about. So we've been perfect. So just to rewind a little bit, Hannah kept saying, do the Latin Quarter tour. And I just kept saying, yeah, one day. Mm-hmm. And then I just said, okay, if you script out an idea and take me on the tour. Mm-hmm. And I said, if you blow my mind with it, we'll do it.
No pressure. No pressure.
But I think just even like where to start and how to do it and everything. And so we picked it. Well, you picked the spot. Mm-hmm. We had I don't know how much we should go into our disagreements on where it should start and end, but did we end up going with what? I think we did it the way that I suggested.
Great, that we
okay. Because I just want to say, we did this. We've practiced it. We've gone over all the angles, and it worked out really well.
Yeah.
And the way I know that it worked out well is when we started and we're looping around, sort of doing this. It felt like a little bit of an escargot.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. I was like, really quickly. I was like, I don't even know where we are. Yeah. Oh, we're here. And I've lived here for 10 years and made Paris my specialty.
Yeah.
And my mind was blown. I think I said about 20 minutes in.
Yeah, I would say so.
I was like, this is great.
Yeah.
This is great. We're doing it.
Yeah.
I said, how quickly can you start?
Yeah, well, that's the thing is that with these things, you just need to start doing them.
Yeah.
Paris does so much of the heavy lifting. Like, it's a beautiful city. There's so much history. It's so interesting. And all that our job is to just kind of funnel that and channel it into something that is accessible for people and just allow people to open it up for themselves. And especially with the Latin Quarter, it's funny you say like an escargot, because really you can be walking around and you're actually only 20 meters from where you started. But it feels like you're in a totally different part of the city.
That's exactly what happened, like 3 times.
Yeah. Frequently.
It's a movable feast, Hannah. That's what I always say.
Indeed it is. Somebody should write a book.
You know what? I think when we did the walk, and we're not just going to talk all about this walk. I want to talk about the quarter in general. But I was quite insistent on and quite excited by the fact that old Philippe Auguste.
Oh yes,
that his wall. I was like, your walk went along some of the streets that even you hadn't been to the back of some of the shops that I've snuck into over the years.
Yeah, so, and I used to live maybe 5 meters away. Yeah. No, 5 minutes away.
That's what I want to talk about as well. You were living.
I lived in the Centre Culturel Irlandais, the Irish Cultural Centre, which is on the Rue des Irlandais.
Is that like when Irish people move to Paris, they get a free 6 months there or something? Like a tumbleweed?
Not free, not even remotely free. Paris is notoriously difficult to find accommodation in. I was a student, this is quite a long time ago, and somebody suggested that was where that might be a good idea to stay in.
Or just knock on the door, look on the notice board kind of thing.
Oh, no. There's an application process. You have to apply.
I'm romanticizing things.
No, yeah. It is much more commercial than one would expect.
Shame.
Yeah, it is a shame. But that all kind of dissipates whenever I would be sitting in my room and the view from my window was the dome of the Pantheon.
Amazing.
And my room was immediately above like the big Irish flag that flies out there. I had a lot of sort of national pride living there, and it used to be a seminary, and actually my great uncle who was a priest. Obviously, I'm an Irish Catholic. He had studied there, so it was just there was a really nice kind of connection with my family, and I know that it was like revolutionaries. It was a revolutionary hospital during the French Revolution. So you're just like already, just the history is right there.
Did he have old photographs that you saw?
He did have photographs of his time in Paris. Some of them were censored by the Catholic Church.
What does that mean? Why?
Well, they were considered not like scandalous, but just maybe.
What could have been so scandalous?
Do you want to get in? Do you want to talk about this?
I don't know.
Oh no, well, just maybe priests behaving.
Really?
In slightly maybe just partying priests, and that's not what they're here to be doing. They're here to be studying liturgical matters.
The Latin Quarter never fails to raise an eyebrow. That's
totally.
what I always say.
Yeah. So
I think I want to talk about in a sort of more general way. I realize there are people listening who don't even know what the Latin Quarter is. Have we defined it?
Not yet. No.
Okay. We said it's a concept.
It's a concept. It's a geographical location. Geographically speaking, it is the most of the 5th arrondissement of Paris. It starts, I would argue it starts at the river across from where Notre Dame is, where Shakespeare and Company is located, and it makes its way up the hill. I think it doesn't go any further west than the Boulevard Saint-Michel. And it goes...
Is that the boulevard that separates... Oh, no, yeah, okay. Yeah.
So the Boulevard Saint-Michel, on the one side is the Latin Quarter, so it's the 5th arrondissement, and on the other side of it is the 6th arrondissement.
But there's that little bit near Shakespeare and Company that's full of all like the Greek food and the falafel-y kind of...
traditional French cuisine.
Yeah. What's your vibe on that?
I think to be avoided. My feeling is whenever you meet people who say, oh, I went to Paris, but I was so surprised because the food was disgusting, and I think you probably ate in a restaurant around there.
Isn't it wild how that little bit is so popular? And it's really, it's the biggest tourist trap in the city for sure.
Absolutely. And it is never not busy except for COVID. I remember cycling around that neighborhood during COVID, and I was the only person, and I remember thinking, this is a weird experience. It makes me feel like I'm in a little village, but I'm in the capital of France.
How odd.
But other than that, it's packed full of people, and I don't know.
Tourists, not Parisians.
Not Parisians.
Yeah, the little Uchette, the jazz bar there. Yeah, that's cool though.
Yeah, that is.
Shout
nice.
out to that where they filmed a bit of La La Land there. I think
they definitely. It was definitely in. It definitely appeared in the movie.
Yeah,
but I think other than if you're going on a Friday or a Saturday night to dance at the Caveau de la Uchette, really
forget it.
Yeah, just avoid.
The tour skips it.
Yeah, and we do not take people there.
Why Latin though?
So traditionally, it is famously home to the Sorbonne University, and I think the Sorbonne opened maybe in the year like 700, 800 AD. What was the language everybody communicated in?
Latin.
It was Latin.
Salve.
Yeah.
Do you know any Latin?
I studied it at school, but it was such a traumatizing experience.
Salve is, I think, all you need. I think that'll get you by.
Yeah.
Can we do a little reminiscing about our walk there?
Oh, let's.
Because a few funny things happen. I always think with a weird thing about doing tour guiding. I've done a bunch of Earful Tower tours in the Marais over the past couple of years.
Yeah.
Is I find myself telling new tour guests about previous tours and things that have happened. And I really, as we've talked about before, I think this stuff is really important because it shows the living city and these true stories and anecdotes that people remember. Mm-hmm. And I always think the worst kind of tours, no offense to tour guides listening to this, and I know some of you are listening to this.
Hello.
Because you say hello to me on the street. But the worst ones are standing at a statue and saying, this is a statue of King XYZ. Mm-hmm. The statue was built in XYZ.
Oh, yeah.
The king lived. I
am ending. Yeah. I am ending the tour. Yeah. I am leaving and walking
So
away.
I always say for Earful Tower tours, I'd rather hear an anecdote about something that happened here to paint a picture. And
it's relatable.
Exactly. And some things happened that were pretty fun. Firstly, I was thrilled that your route went past Rue Clovis Firstly, just love the name Clovis,
Yeah.
first king of the Franks.
Do you know what? So I was told this by a close friend's father. The name Louis comes from Clovis. Clovis, they lost the C somewhere along the way, and U and V were interchangeable.
I love it.
So the C was dropped.
Yep.
The V was changed to a U, and it became Louis.
I get it. Yep.
Yeah.
I'll buy that.
That's it. He said to me there is no actual basis for the name Louis existing prior to the existence
So the
of
C
Clovis.
just dropped off. It's like the street sign, the
Yeah.
edge just fell off or
Yeah.
something. It's a bit like, here's an Earful Tower scoop. G, my last name, possibly came from McGee.
Oh,
And
wow.
the Mc
Yeah.
disappeared. Same as
As
Clovis
happens.
and Louis.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So Rue Clovis anyway,
Yeah.
halfway up is the Philip Auguste Wall, one of the most awesome sections. I
Yeah.
can feel you almost switching off because you
Oh
had
no!
to.
No! I am here for
Okay,
it.
great.
Yeah.
Hopefully, I've still got the audience as well. This amazing cross section of the wall,
Mm.
and as we walked past, I said, "Hannah, I was here once for a live video for Patreon
Yeah.
members. By far the most heart beating, like crazy live video I've ever done."
Yeah, and understandably so.
Because I snuck into. Not only did I sneak into the courtyard that we managed to get into.
Yeah.
Running along the wall there. Not only did I do that, I jumped over a fence and walked up onto the rampart. And
Yeah.
my heart, it was and people were just like, everyone, it was a wild.
Yeah, because the health and safety alone.
Oh,
you know.
mostly, yeah. But then when we went in, I was happy to
Yeah.
to see they put up a new bit of iron fencing to
Yes,
stop people
to
from doing the
stop.
same.
Indeed.
And it's part of my legacy
Yeah.
in Paris.
Yeah.
One of my
You have brought some health and safety finally to
Isn't that
France.
something?
Yeah.
So we went in there, and as we were in there, there was I hesitate to say elderly. Would you say elderly? The woman there?
Yes, I think elderly. Elderly is kind.
Yeah, okay. So she was she was staring at us.
Yeah.
And I knew we were maybe trespassing a little bit.
Yeah.
And I said very politely, like, bonjour. And she kept staring. So I went over and I was like, hey, huge fan of your wall.
Yeah.
And we just got talking.
Yeah.
And I don't want to give away who she is in case people know or anything, but I'll be vague. She said she warmed really quickly.
Yeah. It was she was disarmed by you.
She was disarmed, yeah.
Yeah.
I disarmed her. And then she said, well, you want to hear a story about the wall? I was out the front of my apartment one day and a chunk of it fell off. A stone, an 800-year-old stone fell off. And I thought, if I don't take it, someone else is going to take it.
Absolutely.
So she took, I don't know how big it was. Did she mention?
Didn't really, but she sort of showed it was probably the size of like a small paving stone, and it must have been small enough for her to carry
She
it.
was frail.
Yeah,
And she's like, I took it home, didn't know what to do with it. I called the National Monument thing and said, if you want to collect it, otherwise I've just got it like on my settee. And she says someone came along and reclaimed it and hopefully put it back in the wall.
Yeah.
And I was like, wow.
Yeah.
What a...
But I think she was also making the point that they need to be maintaining it
so
a little
too.
bit. You could see that there were weeds growing out of it, and obviously things like that are going to be compromising the integrity of the wall. And we have so little of it. It's got to be taken care of.
And for people at home having no idea what we're talking about, 800-year-old wall that ran around Paris that I'm particularly fascinated by.
Yeah.
I'll say no more than that.
No, I mean, I feel it speaks for itself.
I think two more things I want to touch on, especially many more, but two that I definitely want to get through.
Yeah.
Is the arena.
Yeah.
We'll come back to that though.
Yeah.
The other anecdote is I got yelled at on the walk.
Yeah. For me, it was such an interesting experience because certainly anybody who's done a tour with me, I talk about, especially in the Montmartre tour, I talk about your ethos in life, which is if you see a door open,
me? Mine?
yeah, you,
Okay,
Oliver G ethos of if you see a door open, go through it.
Yeah.
And I talk about it at I don't want to reveal because it's good to like keep an air of mystery, but it's at a specific place. If you have been on tour with me,
Can you give me a hint so I know?
It's the famous artists. Residence.
Yeah, sure.
And
are you plugging the Montmartre on the Latin Quarter podcast?
only incidentally.
Okay, all
yeah,
right.
I'm never not selling.
Cool,
always
cool.
be hustling. But these two experiences literally last week of there was a door open and we went through it. So it may be something that you talk about regularly as a concept. Now we're back to concepts.
Yeah.
but actually seeing you go through it, go through that physically, but also metaphorically, that you are, if you see a door open, you go through it, and you did it twice, and one ended super well.
Yeah, and both ended super well.
And the other was just a little bit more, I would say, more tense. I'll get into that tense thing, but I'm curious because I've never shadowed you doing an Earful Tower tour.
But when you do it, do the people do they talk about are they always listeners, or are they people who have no idea, or do you find that out? Or
I always make sure, because I think it definitely augments the experience. I would say 7 out of 10 are listeners.
Yeah.
And the rest are people who have Googled walking tours. Yeah.
So those other 3 people, you don't even bother going. Oliver goes through doors because they don't even care.
No, I think I probably, especially in the context of this particular place.
Right.
I think because I love to tell the story of the lady who really also went through the door. That I like to say that, you're the person who organizes and manages these tours, and this is your attitude to life and certainly your approach to the city. That makes sense.
And that's what we did when we found, or when you showed me George Orwell's old house, and the door was open.
Yeah, I mean, we didn't even have to open it; it was there, wide open.
Walk straight in.
Yeah.
Did you come in as well?
I followed you in.
I didn't even stop, and then someone started yelling.
Yeah.
Like, hey!
Yeah, it was so intense.
3 people, I think, were yelling. And
it was almost like they were across the street, primed for people to.
I think they were.
To be, that's the George Orwell house. Let's go in.
The thing is, they didn't have a plaque up there saying George Orwell. So I don't know who's finding it besides people who were in the know. But anyway, walked in, they started yelling.
Yeah.
And then I switched to English, which is a tactic I don't usually use, to be honest. But I felt like it was pretty serious.
I do it when I have to interact with the police.
Yeah.
I have to say.
Good idea.
Again, it's disarming.
Yeah, I've done that before. Yeah. So then they end up being really friendly, and they had 3 generations of families who lived in that. And I was trying to do the math quickly, but the oldest guy there.
Yeah, you asked him, did he know, or had there been any crossover? And he just said, no, I was not born then.
The guy was he was only 70 years old.
How old do you think? He did look quite elderly, to be fair.
But they said they're trying to get a plaque put up there.
Yeah, but to me, they seemed so perturbed by people.
Yeah,
coming. So I thought, why would you put a plaque up to
what was it? Was it a house that we walked into? Was it a restaurant or something? I don't know.
So there's a restaurant, I think, that is, it actually it exists on both sides of the door.
Ah, okay, there you go.
And then the doorway is in between. But from my perspective, I thought, but we could have been going to visit somebody who lives in the building. It's very presumptuous.
They were presumptuous.
But
so were we.
But then so were we.
And for people at home who want to Google it, it's
Rue du Pot de Fer. So the street of the iron pot.
Number 6?
Number 6.
There you go.
Yeah,
don't need to take the tour.
But beware. Don't go through the door.
View from a distance.
Yeah.
The other thing that, here's a confession. The arena, the Arène de Lutèce.
Yeah.
I'm going to be really honest here.
Okay.
Never been a huge fan.
Right.
I really haven't.
And do you know why?
Yeah, because I never really researched it. And I think this is one of the places that really craves imagination or a good storyteller that next to you.
Yeah.
Because I've been there a handful of times.
Yeah.
And if you've never heard what I'm talking about, I'll tell it from the bad perspective.
Okay.
And then we'll sell it. Okay.
Yeah.
Bad perspective, like shoulder high stones.
Shoulder high for you.
Yeah. Massive for you.
Yeah. Like towering above my head.
Okay, yeah. Stones in a 3/4 of a circle.
Yeah.
Not that high. 2 meters tall max, let's say. And people playing pétanque and kicking a soccer ball and signs saying this used to be an arena.
Yeah.
And even if you read a bit, you're like, okay, 2,000 years old. I don't know why, but it's not visually, it's definitely not visually. It's very hard to take a picture of.
Oh, yeah.
Kind of impossible. You can't, I don't know, Augusta could do it. She could do it.
Yeah, I think Augusta definitely could. And I think probably a drone photo.
Interesting.
I think that's probably about it.
Yeah, so I think that's the lazy man's review, and that's how I felt because I never looked into it. But as I started researching it, so you gave me sort of your tour of it, and then you mentioned the Bièvre, which really got me thinking, and then I really started researching it, and I found myself fascinated by it, and I felt guilty to have overlooked it so much. But let's just dissect it a little bit for people.
Yeah.
This was huge.
Yeah.
Like one of the biggest ever.
Yeah. Like if you've been to Rome and you've seen the Coliseum,
Yeah.
not that dissimilar from that.
Yeah.
And I think that it's what you're saying is that if you go and visit it now, it's so removed from what that looks like, but it's because we're seeing the barest of the bare bones. But if you see pictures or, you know, like mock-ups of what it would have looked like, it's
enormous,
so imposing.
with nothing around as well. And I was reading though, like from the top, I didn't even consider that if you're sitting at the top of it, it was a space for how many people was it? Like
17,000.
17,000. And from the top, it's like you could see forever in the distance and the whole Seine and the Bièvre River.
Yeah. And
this Bièvre bit is a bit like, I want to believe it.
Yeah.
But I'm not sure that I do. But what's the
So supposedly, because it sits on top of the Bièvre River.
I'll just add Bièvre River that once ran through Paris and it still does down there.
Still does, yeah. Just as you said, like a little very small, like twinkle of a water, really.
Yeah.
But it's also very close to the Mosque of Paris, and that definitely is on top of it because they used the mosque for people escaping during the Second World War. But they were able to access that water, and they would flood it, and there would be a sport called water jousting. And this is just something that I had a friend, I came here to study at theatre school, and I have a friend who was in my class, and her father, they live in a town on the south coast called Sète.
Yep.
And Sète is very famous in the summertime. They have water jousting competitions, and it brings in thousands of people. And her father, his name is Remy, and he was a captain of one of the water joust boats.
I didn't even know horses could swim.
Well, if you put like life preservers on their legs, they'll be fine, absolutely fine.
So imagine it's rowing boats with a lance.
Basically, you've got lots of men rowing.
Yeah.
And then you have like basically, you know, one man with a lance and another on the other boat.
They have to have gone so far. It's not that bit that I doubt. What I couldn't understand is the letting the Bièvre flow into the arena.
For me, I just wonder where did the water go afterwards?
Yeah, it doesn't seem like unless they did it the night before, and you know, not just let's turn a switch and do half an hour of water jousting.
Yeah.
But
I mean, we know the Romans famously very good with water, so I'm sure they figured it out.
True. I love, and there is a big sign where it's carved in that it mentions water sports. But I guess they can't be 100% sure what happened.
No,
so many
nobody can.
Thousands of years ago.
Yeah.
But what we do know that I sent you pictures. I think late at night. Sorry about that. I got excited.
No,
about.
I was happy to see it. It was great.
This arena has been reused. You were talking when we were there about Fête de la Musique and so on. But 100 years. I found a 100-year-old photo of what looked like women's basketball.
Yeah.
The grand final of the national championship on an outdoor basketball court in that Roman arena. Yeah. I thought that was just spectacular.
Well, it is because it goes to show, I think, for it's sort of the eternal problem of Paris is the outdoor space issue of how do you, and of course we've got the Olympics coming, so you know, where do you make the space for these big events, not only for the actual events itself, but for the spectators? And so I think it really appeals to me that you have people coming, even back then, it being utilised in such a kind of outside of the box way.
It's funny that you say that because I play basketball in a fruit and veg market in the Marais and along the Philippe Auguste wall in the Marais. Things haven't changed for, I was going to say 100 years, but maybe 1900 years.
Who knows?
Who knows? Let's wind things up with, there's probably people visiting who maybe have no intention of doing a walking tour. That's fine too.
Yeah.
I would say to you, Hannah, tell me a quick way to see the Latin Quarter without missing anything.
I think that it has to be, you have to initially make a choice. Are you going to do the lower Latin Quarter or are you going to do the upper Latin Quarter? So that is a choice, and one or the other. You're not going to miss anything out particularly. And I would say then you want to start, if you're going to go with the upper Latin Quarter, you want to start with Place de la Contrescarpe.
Yeah.
It's just, it's at the heart of the entire sort of Hemingway experience. It's also really close to a lot of these sections of the wall. It's also extremely charming. You have the Rue Mouffetard. That for me would be if you wanted to do like an hour in the Latin Quarter.
Yeah.
That for me would be the place to go.
And what about like what's the cheat sheet for the lower Latin
Lower
Quarter?
Latin Quarter, starting out at Shakespeare and Company, you're going to want to go sort of east, and there are beautiful streets, and probably ending up around the Messy Nessie's cabinet.
Yep.
There are streets in and around there, which are just, they're very low key, but they are just desperately beautiful and so picturesque and very very calm and serene, considering you're right next to Notre Dame. You have very, very busy streets. You have the Boulevard Saint-Germain. You have the street or the road that runs along the quay. It can get very congested, but it's just like a little oasis of calm, beautiful restaurants. That for me is what you shouldn't miss if you're doing the lower part of the Latin Quarter.
I think when you see loads of people, if you stumble upon touristy, maybe trap areas,
180 degrees in the opposite direction.
Or just parallel. Often the parallel streets are like just, if there's too many people, you're not getting the real experience.
Yeah.
Great tips, Hannah. Thank you for a year plus of taking people around Paris.
It's been a pleasure.
If anyone listening wants to meet Hannah either in the Latin Quarter or Montmartre, theeiffeltower.com/tours. It'll be written in the show notes below. Also, what we're going to try is, I think it's Tuesday afternoons as a semi-private tour, meaning if you do the tour with Hannah, there will be other lovely listeners there too. This is what we've been doing with the Marais and Montmartre. People tend to get talking to each other. Have you noticed that?
Yeah. I mean, you feel like, maybe friendships. Maybe not friendships for life, but friendships for the duration of their time in Paris. That like people make a real connection.
Do people ever take a picture with you at the end?
No, nobody.
Is that
ever
more of a
wants to
my
take
thing?
picture.
Is that true?
I don't think. I think I've had one person take a picture.
Because sometimes you form bonds.
Yeah.
Over a 2-hour walk.
It's you meet such lovely people, and then you just have people who you've maybe been in the same place at the same time, or just there's that deeper connection of like common interests, or I've met some really lovely people.
Well, that's lovely to hear. I'm glad to hear it. I hope everybody considers booking a tour with Hannah or with me in the Marais or with Hannah in the Marais, or who knows, any of them. theeiffeltower.com/tours. And Hannah, thanks for being in the studio.
It's been so much fun.
And I'll just give a shout out to Patreon members out there, because one of the ways that we perfected this tour was doing it for free with Patreon members. So that's the kind of perk that's out there if you're a member of Patreon. I say Patreon and Patreon.
Well, potato.
Yeah, exactly.
As an Irish person, that's where I come from.
That's one of the perks, unexpected perks that come up, and it's always lovely to be able to show Paris to people.
Yeah.
So
it never gets old.
It never does, even though it is. Right?
Yeah.
On that note, I'll sign off. Thanks again, Hannah Coyle, and everybody listening, wherever you are, whatever you're doing, have a lovely week, and maybe see you in Paris.